Hello everyone, my name is...
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
This metallic orange paint I used is a mix of a pearlescent pearl color with a bright orange. I had seen other people adding silver or some kind of metallic paints to others to turn them into metal. This made the orange what I had in my mind. There is so much orange on the body that I'm only going to show this since it's the same process for each part. On the knee guards using a somewhat smoky gray, it gives some nice color variation. This part here shows what my wet palette can do. This is a good consistency for the paint to flow well and not show a ton of brush strokes on the part that's being painted. It still needs more than one coat of paint though, but since it's a gray, it envelopes the previous layers very fast. For each of the metal joints on her armor, just use a gunmetal. That gray is used on the boots as well. It's going to get used a lot over the whole paint job. Same as the gunmetal, she has lots of joints or just small screws on the armor. Since the character has duplicates of a lot of parts like the feet, lower legs, and the thighs, what I did was paint them first off camera to test how things would look. Normally I would record the whole thing, but that really starts to take up what little room I have on my Android phone. I remember the first Metroid game I ever played. It was the original one on the Super Nintendo for a game that was meant for kids. It was really spooky. You can definitely see how much the creators were inspired by Ridley Scott for the art, atmosphere, and well, even the characters. When we first rented Super Metroid from the video game store, the first time hearing that intro was like mind-blowing. I don't really remember any game before actually talking to you. It was so cool to have that moment in a game, and then that intro part where you fight Ridley. Oh god, it was so cool. I think Super Metroid is where I fell in love with the character of Samus. It sucks. Nintendo sure doesn't care for her as much as the fans do. So you see that gold trim on the thigh? Yeah, it looks nice. But the footage, I have no bloody clue where it went. Let's just pretend a space pirate came and stole it. More gunmetal paint for each of the little details. I think it's from Samus that I grew to like armor-plated characters a lot more than just, well, skimpy outfitted ones. Don't get me wrong, I like a character that has some sex appeal to her, but I would way more prefer a badass armored up lady. What are your thoughts on that? Do you prefer just lewd and sexy characters? Or do you like characters that could kick your ass? Now the green glowing orb, the first layer was a green. I didn't like how it looked, just flat green dot. So a second layer of a lighter green was mixed in too. The torso here is the same gray. I told you, it gets used a lot. And you didn't believe me. You can see that booty fiber, I used the gray blue on it, and I really liked how it turned out. The biggest problem with a black base coat, though, is it takes more layers to build up the color you want. Now onto the torso. You might be wondering why I'm not showing the red get painted on, but just wait till later one. Her chest has some glowing green through it. Just taking a bright green and fill it in. There are metal parts onto of it, so it hides any mistakes. This part here, I'm not sure what you would call it. It's like the part that connects the mesh from her neck to the bottom of the helmet. It's like what astronauts have. If you know what it's called, leave me a comment. I'm lucky I had a lot of this gray paint, since I had to use a lot over the course of this whole paint job, and it needs a few coats to really look nice and smooth. Thankfully, after doing the outline of where the paint needs to go, you can be somewhat sloppy while filling in the rest of it. And as someone much better at painting than me said, not just good, but good enough. If you know who that is, you watch some really good and creepy art videos on YouTube. These pipes are layered in a gunmetal for the first part. So the little part that holds, what I'm going to assume is some kind of gem, is metal. I should have done black on it before so it wouldn't take 3 layers. It has a tiny little wire going out that's painted red first, and just tip of it, a yellow. It makes it look cooler. Just a tiny bit of green. Once it's clear coated, it was varnished. So I lied about not showing another part being painted orange. Kinda thought people might forget what it looked like, so I put this in. Her shoulders are big and orange. You can see how it has a somewhat shimmer to it. Once it's dried, that's the pearl paint mixed in. So, these circle parts, I used a gunmetal first, but then an oily steel on the next one. Turns out, to my eyes at least, they look almost the same. Oh well. So for the green glowing parts in the shoulders, I just base coated them with a slightly dark green, then using a lighter green, mix in like a dot of that dark green, and paint on top of it all. I tried to paint a glow effect like people do on 40K stuff, but couldn't get it to what I wanted in my mind. After the paint and clear coat were on, I applied a clear varnish to give it some shimmer afterwards. Alright, time for the gun arm. It was base coated in a silver paint, then covered with a turquoise. Lots of little metal bits. The arm that connects to the gun has a metal coupling. It's just more gunmetal. I had another print of Samus in her armor. I had printed about 40% of it, but that thing was giant, like probably 1/4 scale, and I couldn't for the life of me get the cannon to print no matter what I did. It had so many intricate parts just on the tip of the gun. Even trying to hollow the part out was a nightmare. But then I saw this version of her and was like, oh yeah, I gotta print this badass girl. More of the gray-blue paint for the fiber between the parts. To break up the colors, it looks way better once it's dried than when it's wet. So her arm that actually has a hand is using the previous blue-gray. It looks really good on the forearm since there is more to see. It's kinda got this carbon fiber look to it. I really like that look in Samus's armor. Kugo Figures really did an amazing job making her look like a cyborg. More metal parts, lots of that on her. You can see how much is needed to cover when you don't paint black before using a metal paint. Yes, I am stupid. So for the knuckles on the hand, each is painted with a gray paint. I like the contrast in a bright metallic orange to the gray. I think you could have gotten away with leaving the whole back of the hand orange if you really wanted to. It would look fine. Maybe making the knuckles a darker metal orange would have worked too. This was fun, but at the same time, my eyes hurt trying to focus on those spots between each finger. I'm one of those weird people who can't actually go cross-eyed, so trying to focus on super small details like that just makes my eyes go bonkers. Maybe one day I will pick up a set of those jeweler's glasses to help zoom in on small details. Right here though, I wanted to show what you can do if you need to do some cleanup. A sharp toothpick can be used to scrape away paint. Getting the paint on these was a bummer, some really hard to reach spots. So remember earlier when I said this is how it was done? Now onto the torso. You might be wondering why I'm not showing the red get painted on, but just wait till later one. See? I told you I would come back to it later on. A gold base coat, painted with a transparent red, it really pops and looks so cool. I had done a gold on the armor bits before and tried to use transparent orange, but God, it looks so bad. Painting the transparent red on top of this gold was so satisfying. You've got to do really, really light coats. At first, even with transparent paint, it can go from being almost not there to just covering the whole thing and ruining what you wanted. I know from experience. You can see how the gold is just barely getting through, just enough to give it that metal look. Her visor, if I could somehow make it a clear resin on only that part, I would love to, but that's not really an option. Looking at the footage while I edit it, I can see how badly the paint wasn't thinned in my wet palette. For the green, I did go back and apply more coats to get an even layering over it all. So her helmet has these little spots with black bits halfway up these things. and these too. I really like all the pipes she has on the armor. It's so cool looking. Samus, in general, is such a cool character, but sadly, there aren't a lot of 3D models with the armor, more of it's just the Zero suit. I might do one of those someday. And here, we are on to the glamour shots. So, the biggest problem with printing on 1/6 scale is, for me at least, I can't get full body shots unless I turn the camera so it's in portrait mode, but I love painting figures at this scale. They look so cool. It might be old by the time you're watching this, but the channel actually broke 1,000 subscribers. That was my year-end goal for 2024. I can't even begin to express how much it means to me. I know it's scary at first to put yourself or even your art out into the world, but it's so much fun to make these videos, and it's a great creative outlet for you. So if you do take anything away from the videos, please don't give up on yourself as an artist or someone who wants to make YouTube videos.